Hello and welcome to this quick tutorial tip and trick on how to use something called a set mat. And what a set mat allows you to do is apply multiple different layers using the same track mat. And it's a really cool and convenient feature that has a lot of benefits to it. In addition to this, I'm going to show you guys how to use something called rasterized layer. Now, this is important if you're trying to use, say, a PNG, a JPEG, even a vector file inside of After Effects. And finally, I'm going to show you how to use a track mat mask. That's right, you can use a mask inside of a track mat, and it's super easy to do using, of course, this set mat option. Now, what are the benefits of this? As I stated before, you can use multiple layers for the same track mat. So let's get started. The timeline, the project panel, and the effects panel are all visible on screen. This is kind of my default layout here. So as you can see, I just have a couple of things imported on my project panel. My timeline is now blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this off by making a new shape layer. So I right click, I hit shape layer, and that's going to create this shape layer 1. Of course, there's nothing there right now because I have to hit add, and I'm going to add a rectangle. Just a normal rectangle. Now my composition size is 1080, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this rectangle a little bit bigger. I'm going to make it an X value of 1920. That's going to span the full length of my composition as it's a 1080, and then I'll make my Y value maybe something like 250 or actually maybe 300 with some vertical height. Now, of course, by default, this shape does not have any fill or stroke, so I'm going to hit add and I'm just going to click on fill, and we got this nice red fill, and I'll just leave it like that because this is going to be the track mat anyway. Color doesn't really matter because we're using the set mat. Now, in a normal circumstance, let's type some text. I'm just going to type in just some text, just like that. Now, let's say I wanted to use that red rectangle as my track mat. Now, what I could do, of course, as you probably already know, go to toggles and switches at the bottom here, click on it, and then we'll make this shape layer 1 the track mat, alpha mat. And if I click on my text layer, notice what happens here. My text is red because my shape fill is red. So in order to rectify this, because maybe I wanted to keep it white, I would just change my shape layer fill to denote white, and then of course that would change the text to white. Now, I'm going to undo all that and show you this thing called set mat. I got my just some text that's white, my red rectangle. Now in my effects and presets panel, it's going to be on the right hand side here. I'm going to go ahead and open it up and I'm going to search for set mat. That's SET space MATTE. There it is. So with my text layer selected, I'm going to double click on set mat. That'll put the effect inside of this layer. And of course our parameters panel will come up on the top left side. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this one that says take mat from layer. So I'm going to make that, select it to shape layer 1. So that's going to make it instantly disappear because we are outside of the bounds of our said track mat. And now notice my red rectangle still appears. Now, automatically, when you use the track mat toggles and switches mode, this will disappear. So the only difference that we really have to do here is we have to just hide this ourselves. So I will hide shape layer 1 for us. And now I'm going to drag down my text and check it out. I just created a successful track mat using this set mat effect, and it kept the attributes of my text, which is pretty cool. Now, if it kept the attributes of that, it's probably going to do the same thing for JPEGs and PNGs as well as vector files, correct? You guessed it, that is correct. So what I'm going to do now is let's just go ahead and hide our text, and I'll of course click back on the visibility for my shape layer 1 that's acting as our track mat. And I'm just going to close this and I'm going to take a look at my project panel, and let's go ahead and import a PNG file. So I'll go ahead and import that now. And this file is massive, so I'll go ahead and just shrink it down a bit. and we have this beach ball. So I'm going to do the exact same thing on my beach ball layer. I'm going to click on that. Going to make sure to get my set mat, double click. And remember, this is important. You're going to use the set mat on the layer that's going to be the track mat. It's not the track mat itself, but the layer that's going to be inside of the track mat to be visible. That's what you're going to use. So in our case here, the set mat would go into just some text and of course our PNG image with shape layer 1 acting as our track mat itself. So I just hit set mat effect on this beach ball here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take mat from layer, and you probably already guessed it. I'm going to hit shape layer 1. Now notice what it did here. Look at this thing. It definitely did not do what I wanted it to do. It almost like it cut just a piece of the beach ball, probably because my beach ball image was so large, but that is definitely not what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo all that and go back to where we were. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do something called rasterize layer. What rasterize layer will allow you to do is to use this in the same form that we use the text. By default, After Effects will rasterize text and shapes, but will not rasterize images. So I'm going to go back to my switches by hitting toggles and switches on my timeline. And I want you to notice something. As you can see, my just some text and shape layer, they have this little star right next to the shy guy right here. This is the rasterize layer switch. Now, like I said, by default, After Effects will kick that on, but for a PNG, it will not. And because this is a PNG, guess what? I can actually cannot click on this. I can't do anything. I can't rasterize this ping, even though it's kind of like a like a double negative because a PNG is a rasterized image. But anyway, this is how we fix it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-compose my PNG image, and I can achieve this by selecting the layer, right-clicking, pre-compose, or hit Shift-Control-C for the shortcut. And this is the important part. You're going to leave all attributes in the comp. Leave all attributes in the comp. So I'm going to select that. And now what this will allow me to do, uh, what this will allow me to do is this box is now available to check. So I'll click on rasterize layer. And what I'll do here is I will do the same exact thing with the set mat. And I will set it to shape layer 1, hide my shape layer 1, and let's see if this gives us the desired effect. And it does. Perfect. So check it out. I have both just some text as well as my beach ball using the same track mat, which is cool. And what's even better is because these are both rasterized, they both have their attributes just the way that they were. So super beneficial, but let's see how it works with a vector file, shall we? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hide these two, and I'm going to bring up my shape layer 1 once again. And let's go ahead and bring up this vector file I have. I have here a logo for something called Return to Springs. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and use set mat for my vector layer. And notice, because this is a vector file, it's a little bit different than the PNG and JPEG. It already has the option to check that switch on, the rasterize layer switch. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that because we want to rasterize this if we're using it for a track mat. And then what I'll do here is select, you probably guessed, of course, shape layer 1 as our track mat. And then we're going to go ahead and hide our shape layer 1 that's acting as our track mat. And because it is rasterized, it's giving us that track mat effect that we want. Now check it out. If I were to unclick the rasterize, check it. It's doing the same thing that it was doing to the beach ball initially before we rasterized it, which is what we don't want. So as long as you have that rasterize checked, everything should be good to go. And now I have 3 objects using the same track mat. Now let's say, um, let's bring up our beach ball. Now I'm going to show you how to use a mask. That's right, I said a mask inside of a track mat. Now there are a couple of benefits to doing this because as you can see here where my beach ball disappears, it gives us this hard edge right here. And maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want it to be feathered to maybe, slowly dissipate and transparent out. So what I'll do here is apply a feather to a mask to a track mat. Now I'm going to I'm going to hide the beach ball first. I'm going to bring up my shape layer 1 acting as our track mat. Now if I were to click on the shape layer 1, the actual layer of the timeline, and then click on the rectangle tool and then drag over, notice it just created another rectangle. It didn't create a mask. So if I were to do it again, it would create rectangle 2 and then rectangle 3. It's just creating a rectangle inside of a rectangle inside of a rectangle, which is not what we want. So I'm going to undo that. Now, when you select your shape tool on your toolbar here, this little thing will come up right here. This is the toggle to mask. This will make it say, hey, After Effects, I don't want this to be another shape. Make this a mask for me. So I'll click on that. And now if I drag another rectangle inside of this rectangle, I have a mask, and I can confirm this by my timeline, and you can see we have a mask on this rectangle here that is our track mat. So what I'll do now is I will go ahead and just deselect everything because we have our mask. I will head to my timeline, I'll click on the mask, and I'm going to hit F, and that's going to bring up the mask feather. Now, of course, what I want to do here is I want to give it this feather effect to give me a slow transparent out instead of that hard edge. So maybe I'll do a mask feather of 100 pixels. Maybe 200 pixels, something like that. 200 on the Y, maybe 0 on the X. And now what I'll do is I will go ahead and let's use our beach ball, and we'll go ahead and select our beach ball here. And we'll see if this gives us the desired effect. And it looks like it didn't do anything. We have no feathering at all here. We're still having this hard edge. And the reason why is on your panel right over here, we have, of course, where we selected our track mat, which it is selected as our shape layer 1. But this one on the side here, we have these 3 options. We have source, masks, and effect and masks. The source is exactly what it sounds like. It's just the source, so just our shape layer 1. But we have a mask inside of this, so we'll go ahead and select mask, and now check it out. Now it's going to give us our transparent feathering effect that's applied to the mask. Now, alternatively, if you also had an effect, say like roughen edges or something like that, you would hit effects and mask, and it would give you all those different options that you applied to your shape layer 1 that's acting as your track mat. So I'll go ahead and just select source again, and that is how you use the set mat option. As I said before, there's many benefits. You can have unlimited amount of layers using the same track mat. And of course, you're able to do a lot more cool effects using masks inside of a track mat, as well as keep attributes of objects, videos, images, and text using a track mat. So a lot of benefits to using this. Um, that concludes this tip and trick tutorial, and I hope this helped you out. Everyone have a nice day, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.